Tyler slid them across the worn laminate surface, his smile too wide, too rehearsed. Brooke sat beside him, phone already in her hand, thumb scrolling through something more interesting than her father-in-law's reaction. My son's wife had perfected that look, present but absent, like she was doing me a favor just by occupying space in my house. "You've saved enough, Dad," Tyler said, tapping the papers with his index finger. "It's time to help your family." I stared at the documents without touching them. The header read like a punchline to a joke I hadn't agreed to hear. Mortgage agreement, 734 Willowbrook Circle. Below that, numbers that made my chest tight. Purchase price, $875,000. Down payment, $175,000. Loan amount, $700,000. Monthly payment, $4,800. Laura stood behind me at the kitchen counter, her coffee mug frozen halfway to her lips. I could feel her stare burning into the back of my head, waiting to see how I'd handle this. "Help your family," I repeated slowly, tasting each word like spoiled milk. "By taking on a $700,000 mortgage for a house I'll never live in." Brooke's eyes flicked up from her phone for exactly 2 seconds. "It's not like we're asking you to buy it yourself. We just need you to co-sign. Be there for your son in a real way." A real way. The phrase hung in the air like cigarette smoke. I'd paid for Tyler's college, every cent of 4 years at a state university while he changed majors 3 times. I'd bought him his first car when he landed his first real job at that property management firm. I'd given him $5,000 last Christmas when he mentioned they were struggling with wedding debt, but apparently none of that counted as real. "Let me understand this," I said, keeping my voice level, my hands flat on the table. "You two bought Brooke a house you can barely afford, and now you want me to take legal responsibility for the debt." "It's not just for me," Brooke cut in, her voice taking on that wounded edge she used when she wanted to sound reasonable. "It's for our future children, for family gatherings, for building something that lasts." I looked at the papers again. The address was in Bridgewater Estates, the new development where every house looked like it had been designed by someone who'd never actually lived in a home, only staged them for real estate photos. All glass and sharp angles and open concept nonsense that made every conversation echo. "You already bought it," Laura said from behind me. Her voice was quiet but sharp as a blade. "When?" Tyler shifted in his seat. 2 weeks ago. The closing was last Friday." "So this isn't a discussion," I said. "This is you informing me." "Dad, come on." Tyler leaned forward, and for a second I saw the kid who used to bring me drawings from kindergarten, who'd sit in my lap during Sunday football games. Then he opened his mouth again, and that kid disappeared. "You and Mom are sitting on a paid-off house worth $400,000, easy. You've got your pension, your savings, you're comfortable. We're just starting out. We need this." The word comfortable hit like a slap. Comfortable. As if 30 years of working maintenance at the old Riverside Pier, of fixing broken boardwalk planks and clearing storm drains and climbing rusty water towers, had been some kind of luxury vacation. As if the 15 years since then, doing odd jobs and side work and careful, painful saving, had been easy. "I worked for what I have," I said. "Every dollar." "And now it's time to share it," Brooke said, setting her phone down with a decisive click against the table. "That's what family does. They support each other." I caught the edge in that word. Support. The implication that by refusing, I was failing some fundamental test of fatherhood, of decency. "I'll help how I can," I said carefully. "I can give you $10,000 toward furniture, maybe another $5,000 for—" "We don't need your furniture money," Tyler interrupted. "We need you to take responsibility for the mortgage. The bank already approved it with you as cosigner. Harold set it all up." Harold? Brooke's father. The man who owned a small real estate office downtown and wore too much cologne and called everyone chief like he'd earned the right. The man who, apparently, had been making financial decisions about my life without consulting me. "Harold arranged my involvement in this," I said slowly, without asking me first. "He was helping," Brooke said. "He knows how these things work. Banks want to see multi-generational investment. It's standard. Standard is asking before you volunteer someone for a $700,000 debt." Tyler's face hardened. That look, I'd seen it before, usually right before he said something he'd regret. "You're being selfish, Dad. You know that? Genuinely selfish. You've had your life. You've had your time to build and save and secure your future. Now it's our turn, and you're acting like we're asking you to donate a kidney." Laura's mug hit the counter hard enough that we all jumped. She didn't say anything, but the sound spoke volumes. I pushed the papers back across the table. "I'm not signing." Silence. The kind that fills a room like cold water. rising until you can't breathe right. Brooke picked up her phone. Tyler's jaw worked like he was chewing words too sharp to spit out safely. "You'll regret this," he finally said, standing up. His chair scraped against the linoleum with a shriek that made my teeth hurt. "We're giving you a chance to be part of something, to actually be there for your son, and you're too cheap, too stuck in your ways to see it." "Tyler," Laura said, her voice low and warning. "No, Mom. He needs to hear it. You both need to hear it. This is what happens when you stop caring about anyone but yourselves, when you hoard what you have instead of investing in the next generation. When you—" "Get out," I said. Tyler stopped mid-sentence, mouth open. "Get out of my house," I repeated. "Take your papers, take your entitlement, and get the hell out." Brooke stood up so fast her chair tipped backward. She didn't even try to catch it. "Typical," she spat. "Absolutely typical. Some parents actually want their kids to have better lives. Some parents understand what sacrifice means, but not you. No, you'd rather sit in your paid-off house and count your money while your son struggles." They left. Tyler grabbed the papers, Brooke grabbed her purse, and they stormed through my house like twin hurricanes, their footsteps loud enough to rattle the picture frames on the walls. The front door slammed with enough force to make the windows shake. Laura moved first. She walked around the table, set her mug down, and placed both hands on my shoulders. "Dean," she said quietly, "what just happened?" I stared at the spot where the papers had been. My hands were shaking, not with fear, not with sadness, but with something else, something colder. "They bought a house they can't afford," I said, "and decided my savings are their insurance policy." "They'll come back," Laura said. "Give them a few days. Tyler will cool down, realize he was out of line." "No." I turned to look at her. "He won't. This wasn't anger. This was the plan all along. They bought the house first, got everything set up with Harold, came here with the papers ready. This was always meant to be a done deal, and I was just supposed to smile and sign." Laura's fingers tightened on my shoulders. "What are you going to do?" I didn't answer. Not because I didn't know, but because the answer forming in my head was too cold, too calculated to say out loud yet. Outside, through the kitchen window, I could see storm clouds building over the water. The pier would be quiet tonight. No tourists, no families, just the sound of waves hitting old wood and the groan of structures holding against pressure they weren't built for. Comfortable, Tyler had called me. Selfish, stuck in my ways. I stood up, walked to the window, and watched the first drops of rain hit the glass. "Dean?" Laura's voice behind me was soft, worried. "I'm fine," I said, and I was. I was perfectly, absolutely fine. Because if they wanted a fight, they just picked the wrong maintenance guy. Before we go any further, hit the hype button, take a second to subscribe, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? 3 weeks passed like a held breath. I heard about the housewarming party through Laura, who heard about it through her sister, who'd heard about it through Brooke's mother. The information chain was long enough that by the time it reached me, the insult had been thoroughly documented and time-stamped. We weren't invited. Because of the tension, Laura read from her phone, showing me the family group chat I'd been quietly removed from. Brooke thinks it's best if we give everyone space to celebrate without bringing up uncomfortable financial discussions. I was at the kitchen table, same spot as 3 weeks ago, eating toast and reading the morning paper. The crossword was giving me trouble. 7 letters, one who betrays trust. I had 4 letters filled in, T-R-A-I. The answer seemed obvious. "Space," I said around a mouthful of toast. "That's generous of her." Laura set her phone down and poured herself more coffee. She'd been quiet since the blow-up. Not angry quiet, not sad quiet, but the thinking kind of quiet. The kind that meant she was processing, calculating, deciding how she felt about the crater that had opened up in our family. "Are you going to call him?" she asked. "No." "Dean." "What would I say, Laura? Sorry I wouldn't co-sign your mortgage? Sorry I wouldn't let you gamble my life savings on your wife's dream kitchen?" She sat down across from me, both hands wrapped around her mug. "He's our son." "I know who he is." I filled in another word. 9 letters. Regret for wrongdoing, R-E-M-O-R-S-E. That doesn't change what he did. What they did. "Brooke's in his ear," I said. But Tyler made the choice to listen. The conversation died there. We'd had versions of it every day for 3 weeks, circling the same points, never quite landing anywhere solid. Laura wanted to believe this was fixable. I wanted to believe I could go back to not caring. Neither of us was right. I went to the pier that afternoon. Thursday was maintenance day. My old boss still called me in twice a week for odd jobs. The pay was decent, and the work kept my hands busy. Today, it was fixing a section of boardwalk railing that had rotted through after the last big storm. The pier stretched out over the water like an arthritic finger, all weathered wood and chipped paint and the smell of salt and motor oil. Tourist season was winding down. The arcade was mostly empty except for a few teenagers feeding quarters into the claw machines. The carousel played the same tinny music it had been playing for 40 years. I liked it here. Liked the simplicity of problems that could be solved with wood glue and screws. Liked being able to see results at the end of a day. I was 3 boards into the repair when I heard footsteps behind me, heavy, purposeful. Dean. I didn't turn around. I knew the voice. Tyler. We need to talk. I'm working. This can't wait. I set down my drill and stood up, brushing sawdust off my jeans. Tyler stood 5 feet away, hands in his pockets, shoulders tight. Behind him, further back on the boardwalk, Harold leaned against a support post, watching. Brooke's father wore khakis and a polo shirt, like he'd just come from a very important meeting about very important things. You brought Harold, I said. He wanted to be here, for support. Support for what? Tyler glanced back at Harold, who nodded once. Some kind of signal. We've been patient, Dad. We gave you space. Time to reconsider. But you're not budging, and we can't wait anymore. Can't wait for what? For you to do the right thing. I laughed. Actually laughed, short and sharp. The right thing. You mean the thing you want. We bought that house because of you, Tyler said, his voice rising. Because you and Mom always talked about family, about legacy, about building something that lasts. We took you at your word. I never told you to buy an $800,000 house. You never told us not to. Tyler, listen to yourself? No, you listen. He stepped closer, and I could see the strain in his face, the red around his eyes like he hadn't been sleeping. We're drowning. The mortgage is eating us alive. Brooke's credit cards are maxed. I'm about to get written up at work because I've been too stressed to focus. We need help. Real help. Not 5,000 here, 10,000 there. We need you to step up. Behind him, Harold pushed off the post and walked over. Dean, let's be reasonable here. Nobody's asking you to give anything away. This is an investment. In your family, in your legacy. My legacy is my business, I said, looking at Harold for the first time. Not yours. When it affects my daughter, it becomes my business. Harold's smile didn't reach his eyes. You strike me as a practical man, Dean. A man who understands consequences. Right now, Tyler and Brooke are in a difficult position. They made a commitment based on certain expectations I never agreed to. Verbal agreements count, you know, especially in family matters. Courts see that kind of thing. The word courts hung in the air like smoke. Are you threatening me? I asked quietly. I'm informing you, Harold said, of your options. You can help your son voluntarily, or this can get ugly. Your choice. Something in my chest went tight and hot. I looked at Tyler, really looked at him, searching for some trace of the kid I'd raised. The kid who'd cried when his goldfish died, who'd helped me build a treehouse in the backyard, who'd told me once, drunk on cheap beer at his 21st birthday, that I was his hero. You're really going to do this, I said. You're going to sue your own father. Tyler's jaw worked. If I have to. The wind picked up off the water, cold and sharp. The carousel music played on. A seagull screamed overhead, circling. I stepped toward Tyler. Not aggressive, just closing distance. Close enough to see the sweat on his upper lip, the way his hands were shaking. Do your worst, I said. Harold's hand landed on Tyler's shoulder, pulling him back. That's unfortunate, Dean. Truly unfortunate. We were hoping to avoid... Get off my pier, I said. This is public property, Harold said, smiling wider. We have every right. Get off my pier. Something in my voice must have landed right, because Tyler took a step backward. Harold kept smiling, but his eyes went flat and cold. You'll be hearing from our lawyer, Harold said. Soon. They left. Walked back down the boardwalk side by side, Tyler's shoulders hunched, Harold's hand on his back like he was steering a child. I stood there for a long time after they disappeared, staring out at the water. The waves were rough today, whitecaps, the kind of day where swimmers got pulled under before they realized they were in trouble. My hands were shaking again. That same cold feeling from 3 weeks ago, only stronger now, sharper. I finished the railing repair on autopilot, my mind spinning through possibilities, scenarios, outcomes. By the time I packed up my tools, the sun was setting and the pier was nearly empty. Laura was waiting when I got home. She took one look at my face and knew. What happened? I told her. Every word, every threat. When I finished, she sat down hard on the couch, her face pale. They can't actually sue you, she said. Can they? You never promised anything in writing. You never. Harold thinks they can. And even if they can't win, they can make it expensive, painful, public. Tyler wouldn't do that. He wouldn't actually. He already did, Laura. He stood on the pier with Harold and told me to my face that he'd sue if I didn't pay up. She looked at me for a long moment. What are we going to do? I didn't answer right away. I walked to the kitchen, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and stood at the sink looking out at our small backyard. The grass needed mowing, the fence needed paint. Small problems, manageable problems. Dean? I'm thinking, I said. And I was. I was thinking about Tyler's face when he'd said we're drowning, about Harold's smile, about Brooke checking her phone while they demanded I sign away my security. I was thinking about how I'd spent 30 years fixing things other people broke. Maybe it was time to break something myself. The papers arrived on a Thursday. I was out front mowing the lawn when a sedan pulled up to the curb. The driver was young, professional, bored. She checked an address on her phone, looked at our house number, and climbed out with a clipboard. Dean Marlowe. Yeah. You've been served. She handed me an envelope, had me sign a form, and was back in her car before I'd even processed what had happened. The whole exchange took less than 30 seconds. Laura came out onto the porch, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Who was that? I opened the envelope. The papers inside were thick, official, stamped with court seals and legal firm headers. Summons and complaint. Civil action. Tyler Marlowe and Brooke Marlowe versus Dean Marlowe case. Number CV 2024-8847. Dean? I flipped through the pages, my eyes catching on phrases that felt designed to hurt. Breach of verbal contract. Promissory estoppel. Emotional distress. Failure to provide promised financial support. And at the bottom of page 3, highlighted in bold, amount sought, $900,000. $900,000. The lawnmower was still running, blades spinning uselessly on the half-cut grass. Laura took the papers from my hands and read them herself, her face going white, then red, then something harder. $900,000, she said quietly. They're suing us for $900,000. Plus legal fees, I said, pointing to a line near the end. And court costs. Laura sat down on the porch steps like her legs had stopped working. This is insane. This is actually insane. I read through the complaint more carefully. The language was precise, surgical. They claimed I'd made repeated verbal promises to support Tyler's home purchase, that I'd encouraged them to buy beyond their means, that I'd created a reasonable expectation of financial backing and then withdrawn it maliciously. It was fiction. Well-crafted, plausible fiction, but fiction nonetheless. Harold wrote this, I said, or his lawyer did. We'll get our own lawyer, Laura said, her voice shaking. We'll fight this. No jury will believe. Won't matter if they believe it or not, I said. Process is the punishment. They'll drag this out. Depositions, discovery, motions. Even if we win, we lose. So what? We just let them have our money? I looked at the papers again, at the amount, at the date of the first hearing, 3 weeks away, and then I smiled. Laura stared at me. Why are you smiling? Because they just made a mistake, I said. What mistake? I folded the papers carefully and tucked them back into the envelope. They assumed I'd roll over, that I'd see this and panic and offer them a settlement just to make it go away. Isn't that what most people would do? Most people aren't me. I picked up the envelope and walked back into the house. Laura followed, still talking, asking questions I wasn't ready to answer yet. In my office, really just the second bedroom with a desk and some filing cabinets, I spread the papers out and read them again, slowly this time, carefully, looking for the holes, the weak points, the places where Harold's lawyer had overreached. Tyler's signature was at the bottom of the complaint, right above Brooke's, both witnessed and notarized. My son had signed his name to a document calling me a liar and a cheat. That night, Laura and I sat in bed, neither of us sleeping. She'd spent the evening on her phone, researching lawyers, bankruptcy procedures, asset protection strategies. I'd spent it staring at the ceiling, my mind turning over the same thought again and again. They gave me the mortgage papers once. The next time, I'd be the one handing them over. Talk to me, Laura said in the darkness. Tell me what you're thinking. They want my money, I said. They think they're entitled to it. That because I'm their father, their bank account is my responsibility. So we fight back, we prove they're lying. We could do that. Or... I turned to look at her. Her face was barely visible in the shadows, but I could feel her watching me, waiting. Or we give them exactly what they asked for, I said. I don't understand. They wanted me involved in their house, in their mortgage, in their financial lives. Laura propped herself up on one elbow. Dean, what are you planning? I smiled in the dark. To be the best co-signer they never wanted. The credit union was a small brick building tucked between a dry cleaner and a Vietnamese restaurant 3 blocks from the old pier. I'd been banking there for 20 years, back when it was the only place that would give a maintenance guy a decent car loan. The manager, a heavy-set man named Carl Winters, had helped me refinance our house twice. Dean? Carl stood up from his desk when I walked in, hand extended. Long time? How's retirement treating you? Not retired yet, I said, shaking his hand. Still picking up pier work when I can. Smart man, keep moving, keep earning. He gestured to a chair. What can I do for you? I sat down, choosing my words carefully. I need some information. Hypothetical at first. Carl's smile faded slightly. Hypothetical about what? Mortgage notes. How they're bought and sold. That's an unusual question. I know. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. This about your son? I shouldn't have been surprised. Small town, smaller banking community. Of course, word had gotten around. You heard about that, I said. Hard not to. The complaint's public record. Carl shook his head. For what it's worth, most people around here think it's garbage. Tyler always struck me as a good kid, but that wife of his? He trailed off diplomatically. The mortgage on their house, I said. Who holds it? Carl frowned. Why do you want to know? Because they're suing me for $900,000, and I'd like to understand what I'm dealing with. Understanding the mortgage won't help you in court. Maybe not, but it might help me sleep better. Carl thought about it. Then he turned to his computer and typed. Give me the address. 734 Willowbrook Circle. More typing, a long pause. Bridgewater Estates. Nice area. Overpriced, though. Developers charged a premium for that neighborhood. Who holds the note? Maritime Savings Bank, Commercial Lending Division. He scrolled down. Original loan amount $700,000. Standard 30-year fixed. Looks like... Huh? What? They've already missed 2 payments. Technically, they're in default. My chest tightened. Default? Yeah. Bank's probably sending them warning letters. After 3 missed payments, they can start foreclosure proceedings. How long does that process take? In this state, 6 months minimum if it's contested. Longer if there are complications. He looked at me. But Dean, if they're in default, that's their problem, not yours. Unless they win the lawsuit. They won't win. No way a judge gives them $900,000 based on verbal promises. I'm not worried about losing, I said. I'm worried about what happens while we're fighting. Carl nodded slowly. I get it. So what are you thinking? Hypothetically, I said carefully, if someone wanted to buy a mortgage note, how would they do that? Carl's expression changed. That's not hypothetical. No, it's not. Dean, you can't buy your son's mortgage. There are ethics issues, conflict of interest. I'm not asking if I should, I'm asking if I could. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he closed the laptop and leaned forward. Okay, real talk. Yes, technically, a mortgage note can be bought by anyone. Banks sell them all the time, especially problem loans. Someone defaults, bank doesn't want the hassle of foreclosure. They sell the note at a discount to a debt buyer who does the dirty work. What's the discount usually? Depends on the situation. Defaulted loan with equity in the house? Bank might take 80-90 cents on the dollar just to get it off their books. I did quick math in my head. $700,000 at 90 cents was $630,000. More than I had in savings, but not by much if I leveraged the house. And the buyer, the person who purchases the note, they get full rights? Full rights. They own the debt. Can restructure it, can foreclose, can do whatever they want within the legal framework. Even if the person who bought the note is related to the debtor. Carl's eyes narrowed. You're serious about this. I'm asking questions. No, you're planning something. He stood up, walked to his office door, and closed it. When he came back, his voice was lower. Dean, listen to me. What you're describing isn't illegal, but it's complicated as hell. You buy Tyler's mortgage, you become his creditor. That changes everything about your lawsuit, your relationship, your legal standing. Changes it how? For one thing, they can't sue you for money if you literally own their house debt. The lawsuit becomes moot. For another, if they keep defaulting, you'd have the power to foreclose on your own son. I know. You know. Jesus, Dean. Carl sat down heavily. Do you understand what you're talking about? Foreclosing on family? Taking their house? That's scorched earth. They took the first swing. And you want to burn down the whole forest in response? I looked at him steadily. I want to stop being the victim in my own family story. Carl was quiet for a long time. Finally, Maritime Savings Bank. Ask for Dennis Kowalski in commercial lending. Don't tell him I sent you. Will they even talk to me? If you have the capital and you approach it as a business transaction? Yeah. Banks don't care about family drama. They care about risk management. He wrote a name and number on a sticky note. But Dean, before you do this, really think about what it means. You can't unring this bell. I'm not trying to unring it. I'm trying to control who's holding the rope. I left the credit union with the sticky note in my pocket and a plan forming in my mind. Maritime Savings Bank was downtown, a glass and steel building that looked too modern for the aging city around it. Dennis Kowalski's office was on the third floor, decorated with framed certificates and photos of him shaking hands with people in suits. Mr. Marlowe, he said, standing to shake my hand. Carl said you had some questions about purchasing a distressed mortgage. That's right. Commercial or residential? Residential, 734 Willowbrook Circle. He pulled up the file on his computer. Ah, one of our problem children. 2 missed payments, 3 late payments before that. Borrowers are underwater on the loan relative to their income. What would you sell it for? What's your interest in this property? Investment opportunity, I said. I know the neighborhood. Thought I might be able to work with the borrowers on a restructure. It wasn't entirely a lie. Dennis studied the screen. Original loan was $700,000. Current balance is $695,000. We'd entertain offers around $650,000. More than I had liquid, but possible if I leveraged everything. And the borrowers would be notified of the sale? Not until it's complete. Once the paperwork's filed, they'd receive a letter informing them that their mortgage has been transferred to a new servicer. New servicer being me. Being whatever entity you set up to hold the note. Most buyers use an LLC for liability protection. My mind raced. An LLC? Anonymous ownership? Tyler wouldn't know it was me until it was too late. How long does the process take? If you have the capital and credit, we can close in 3 weeks, faster if you push it. I'd like to push it, Dennis smiled. I'll need proof of funds, credit check, and a purchase agreement. Can you have that to me by end of week? Yes. We shook hands. I left the bank feeling like I'd just stepped off a cliff and was waiting to see if the parachute would open. Laura was in the garden when I got home, pulling weeds from around the tomato plants. She looked up when I approached. Where have you been? Banking. For 3 hours. I sat down on the back steps. I found a way. A way to what? To take control, to stop being reactive and start being proactive. She set down her trowel and came over, wiping dirt from her hands. Explain. I told her everything, the meeting with Carl, the call with Dennis, the price, the timeline, the LLC setup. When I finished, she was pale. You want to buy Tyler's mortgage, she said slowly. Yes. So you can foreclose on him if he doesn't pay. So I have leverage, real leverage. Not just legal threats, but actual power over their situation. Dean, that's genius or insane. Take your pick. She sat down beside me. Both. It's definitely both. Will you support it? She was quiet for a long time. The garden sprinkler hissed in the background. A dog barked somewhere down the street. How much will it cost? She finally asked. $650,000, plus legal fees to set up the LLC. Maybe another $10,000, $15,000 all in. That's almost everything we have. I know. If this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, we lose our savings, our security, everything we've worked for. I took her hand. They're already trying to take it. At least this way, we're in control of when and how. She looked at me, really looked at me, searching my face for something. Sanity, maybe. Or at least recognition of the man she'd married. You're sure about this, she said. I'm sure they forced me into it. That's not the same thing. It's close enough, she squeezed my hand. Okay. Okay. I trust you. I don't understand you right now, but I trust you, she stood up. But Dean, promise me something. What? When this is over, however it ends, you'll remember that Tyler is still our son, that there's a baby coming who's going to be our grandchild. That family is supposed to mean something. I'll remember, I said. She went inside. I stayed on the steps, watching the sun sink lower, thinking about what I was about to do. The next 3 weeks were a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and lying awake at night second-guessing everything. Nina helped me set up the LLC, Coastal Property Holdings. Anonymous ownership, registered to a P.O. box, untraceable back to me without serious digging. The credit check came back clean. The proof of funds was validated. Maritime Savings Bank drew up the purchase agreement. I signed everything with shaking hands, using our house as collateral for a secured line of credit to cover the difference between our savings and the purchase price. If this went wrong, we'd lose everything. Dean, Dennis said during our final meeting, "Hey, I have to ask, are you certain about this? Buying a distressed mortgage is risky. The borrowers are in default. You might end up having to foreclose, which is expensive and time-consuming." "I understand the risks." "And you're comfortable with them?" I thought about Tyler sliding those papers across my kitchen table, about Brooke's dismissive glance, about the lawsuit, the public humiliation, the $900,000 demand. "Very comfortable," I said. I received a plain manila folder containing the deed, the note, and a letter confirming that I was now the legal holder of Tyler Marlowe's mortgage. I sat in my car in the bank parking lot, holding the papers, feeling the weight of what I'd just done. My son owed me $695,000, and he didn't even know it yet. I drove to the small apartment I'd rented 2 weeks earlier, a furnished studio 3 blocks from Bridgewater Estates. It was cheap, anonymous, perfect for what I needed. Inside, I'd set up a corkboard on one wall. I pinned the mortgage documents next to a map of Tyler's neighborhood, next to photos I'd taken of the house, next to copies of their credit card statements and bank records. It looked like something from a crime show. Obsessive. Unhealthy. But it also felt right. For 20 years, I'd fixed things. Broken railings, leaking pipes, electrical shorts. I'd been the guy people called when something went wrong. Now something had gone wrong in my own family, and nobody was calling me to fix it, so I'd fix it myself, whether they wanted me to or not. I pulled out my phone and called Nina. "It's done," I said when she answered. "You bought it?" "Closed this morning." Silence. Then, "Dean, I want to be very clear about something. What you've just done is legal, but it fundamentally changes your position in the lawsuit." "How?" "They're suing you for $900,000 based on alleged promises, but you now hold debt they owe you. That's a much stronger position than just being a defendant. So we tell them? Not yet. Let them think they still have leverage. Let them show their hand at mediation. Then we drop this on them like a bomb. And if they figure it out before then, they won't. The notice letter from the bank will look like standard administrative paperwork. They'll probably ignore it or assume some debt buyer picked up their mortgage. They won't connect it to you." "What about the lawsuit? Does this affect the judge's decision?" "It complicates things. If you're their creditor, you have a financial interest in their situation. That might create conflicts." She paused. "But honestly, I think it makes them dropping the suit more likely. They can't credibly claim you owe them money while they're literally in debt to you. So we win. We win if they give up. We win if we can pressure them into a settlement that gets them off your back. We don't win if they dig in and this turns into a multi-year legal battle that costs everyone a fortune. Then we make sure they don't dig in." "How?" I looked at the corkboard, at the map of Tyler's neighborhood, at all the careful notes I'd made about their lives, their finances, their vulnerabilities. "By giving them no choice," I said. The notice arrived at Tyler's house on October 14th, exactly as Dennis had promised. I knew because I was parked across the street, watching from my rental apartment window through a pair of binoculars I'd bought at a sporting goods store. The mail truck pulled up at 2:37 p.m. The carrier was a young woman with her hair in a ponytail. She walked up the driveway, sorted through her stack, and tucked a large envelope into the mailbox mounted beside the front door. I waited, watched. 20 minutes later, Brooke came out in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, checking her phone. She grabbed the mail without looking, tucked it under her arm, and went back inside. That envelope contained the notification that Maritime Savings Bank had sold their mortgage to Coastal Property Holdings, LLC, that their payment address had changed, that they should contact the new servicer with any questions. Standard administrative language. Nothing alarming. Just another piece of financial bureaucracy in an already complicated life. They wouldn't panic. Not yet. I went back to my desk and pulled up the spreadsheet I'd been building. Tyler's income, their expenses, their debt payments. The numbers were brutal. Even without the lawsuit eating up money, they were underwater. The mortgage alone consumed 70% of Tyler's take-home pay. Add in their minimum credit card payments, and there wasn't enough left for groceries, let alone the lifestyle Brooke insisted on maintaining. They'd been treading water. The lawsuit was their life raft. But I'd just taken the raft away. My phone rang. Nina. Mediation's confirmed for November 2nd, she said. 10 a.m., courthouse conference room. Judge Foster will have a mediator present. Will she be there? Not typically. Mediators are usually retired lawyers or judges who specialize in settlement discussions. The idea is to keep things less formal, more conversational. What's our strategy? We present your financials, clean, organized, showing you never promised anything beyond reasonable help. Then we present theirs, the credit cards, the missed mortgage payments, the cash advance. We make it clear that their financial problems are self-inflicted. And the mortgage? We hold that in reserve, only bring it up if they're being unreasonable. They'll be unreasonable. Probably. But let's give them a chance to be smart first. After she hung up, I spent the rest of the afternoon driving around Bridgewater Estates. The neighborhood was exactly what I'd expected. McMansions packed tight, each trying to out-impress the others. 3-car garages, elaborate landscaping, HOA signs every 50 feet reminding residents about approved paint colors and lawn care standards. Tyler's house was near the back of the development, on a cul-de-sac with 5 other homes. It was the second largest on the street, with a stone facade and tall windows that probably made the electric bills a nightmare. I parked down the street and watched. Brooke left around 4, driving a white SUV I vaguely recognized from Christmas 2 years ago. Tyler came home at 6:15, tie loosened, looking exhausted. Through the window I could see them in the kitchen. Brooke was animated, gesturing, probably complaining about something. Tyler slumped at the counter, head in his hands. They looked miserable. Good. That night, back at the apartment, I made a list of every code violation I could spot from my surveillance. The garage door was misaligned, probably failing sensors. The roof had visible moss growth in several sections. The gutter over the front entrance was sagging, which meant either improper installation or water damage. Any one of those could trigger a mandatory inspection. All of them together would be expensive to fix. As the mortgage holder, I had the right to ensure the property was maintained to protect my investment. I could make their lives very difficult. The question was timing. Hit them too soon, and they'd know something was wrong. Wait too long, and I'd lose momentum. I decided to wait until after mediation. Let them think they still had control. Then pull the rug out. Laura called around 8. "Have you eaten?" she asked. "Not yet." "Dean, you need to take care of yourself." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're living in a studio apartment spying on our son." "I'm not spying. I'm observing." "That's the same thing." I walked to the window and looked out at the street. A few kids were riding bikes in the fading light, normal suburban evening activities. "How's the house?" I asked, changing the subject. "Quiet. Empty without you." "I'll be home soon." "When?" "After this is over." "And when will that be?" "I don't know." "But Laura, I need you to trust me a little longer." Silence. Then, "I'm trying, but you're scaring me." "I'm scaring myself." After we hung up, I sat in the dark apartment for a long time, thinking about what I'd become. A year ago, I was a retired maintenance guy who did crossword puzzles and helped his neighbors fix their leaky faucets. Now I owned my son's mortgage and was planning code inspections to drive up his costs. The person I was would have been horrified. The person I'd become felt nothing but cold determination. The week before mediation, I took a night shift at the pier. My old boss had called saying they needed emergency repairs to the arcade roof after a storm had torn up some shingles. I was up on the ladder at midnight, prying off damaged wood, when I heard footsteps on the boardwalk below. "Dean?" I looked down. Tyler stood there, hands in his pockets, looking up at me. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "I could ask you the same thing." "Working." "At midnight?" "Storm damage doesn't wait for business hours." He shifted his weight, nervous. "Can we talk?" "About what?" "About everything, about the lawsuit, about what happened." I climbed down the ladder, keeping my hands busy organizing tools, not looking at him directly. "Seems like we should talk through lawyers now," I said. "That's what Brooke says too." "But Dad, He stopped, started again. This wasn't supposed to go this far. "What was supposed to happen?" "You were supposed to help, like you always did, like you always said you would." I finally looked at him. I said I'd help how I could. I didn't say I'd co-sign a $700,000 mortgage. We needed you. You needed a bank. I'm not a bank. You're my father. Which is exactly why you shouldn't have sued me. Tyler's face crumpled. For a second, he looked 12 years old again, like when he'd struck out in Little League and came home crying. Brooke said, "I don't care what Brooke said. She didn't make you file those papers. You did that." I was desperate. "So am I, Tyler. So am I. He stared at me. What does that mean? I picked up my hammer, tested its weight. It means you wanted to play hardball with your father's life savings. Now you're going to find out I can play too. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Dad, please. If we don't settle this, if the lawsuit goes to trial, I'll lose my job. The publicity alone? You should have thought of that before you sued me. I'm trying to apologize. No, I said quietly. You're trying to manipulate. There's a difference. I turned back to the ladder. He stood there for another minute, maybe hoping I'd soften, but I didn't. Finally, he left. I watched him walk away down the boardwalk, shoulders slumped, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. 3 days later, I got a call from Nina. They want to settle, she said. For how much? $200,000, paid out over 5 years. They drop the lawsuit, you help with their mortgage. No. Dean, that's actually a reasonable offer considering. I don't care if it's reasonable. They sued me for $900,000. They tried to take everything I've worked for. And now they want me to pay them $200,000 to make it go away? What do you want me to tell them? I thought about the mortgage documents in my desk, about the code violations I'd documented, about the power I now held. Tell them we'll discuss it at mediation, I said. In person. You have something planned. Just tell them, she sighed. You're going to give me an ulcer. Get in line. The mediation ended badly. Tyler stormed out. Brooke had to be helped to the car by Harold, still crying. Patricia Vance promised to file emergency motions challenging the mortgage sale, though Nina assured me none of them would go anywhere. That went well, Nina said dryly as we watched them leave through the conference room window. Did it? You terrified them, which was the goal, I assume. Laura hadn't said a word since I'd revealed the mortgage purchase. She sat in the corner of the room, staring at her hands. Laura, I said, I need a minute. I gave her space, walking into the hallway with Nina. Raymond Keller passed us, shaking his head. 30 years mediating, he muttered. Never seen anything quite like that. When he was gone, Nina turned to me. What now? We wait. 4? For them to realize they have no choice but to settle on my terms. And if they don't? Then I start enforcing the mortgage terms. Inspections, violations, demands for immediate repairs. I make that house so expensive to maintain that they can't afford to keep fighting me. Nina studied my face. You really would foreclose. If it comes to that. Dean, you understand what that means? You'd evict your own son, your pregnant daughter-in-law, take their house. They tried to take my savings. That's not the same thing, isn't it? She was quiet for a moment. Then, I'll prepare the settlement documents. Low payment plan, dropped lawsuit, release of all claims. Basically, they go away and you restructure their mortgage to something manageable. No. Nina blinked. No. I want them to think they're winning first. I don't understand. Call Patricia tomorrow. Tell her we're willing to negotiate, that I'm open to a settlement if they meet certain conditions. What conditions? They pay me $50,000. Drop the lawsuit. Sign a document accepting full responsibility for their house and debts. 50,000? Dean, they don't have 50,000. I know. Understanding dawned in Nina's eyes. You want them to reject it? I want them to feel like they're backed into a corner, like there's no way out. And then, when they're desperate enough, I'll offer them something they can actually accept. Why not just offer that now? Because I want them to know what it feels like to lose everything first. I want them to understand what they tried to do to me. Nina looked uncomfortable. That's not justice, Dean. That's cruelty. Then call it what it is. But do it anyway. Laura was standing when we came back into the conference room. Her face was unreadable. Can we go home now? She asked quietly. We drove separately. She didn't want to talk, didn't want to process, just wanted space. I understood, even if it hurt. At home, I found her in the kitchen making tea. She didn't look at me when I came in. You planned that whole performance, she said. The dramatic reveal, the shock value. You wanted to humiliate them. I wanted them to understand their position. You wanted revenge. Maybe. She turned to face me. I've been with you for 30 years. I know when you're being strategic and when you're being cruel. That was cruel, Dean. They sued us for $900,000. And now you own their house, their debt, their future. When does it end? When they surrender. And then what? You forgive them? You let them rebuild? Or do you keep grinding until there's nothing left? I didn't have an answer. Laura set down her mug. I'm going to my sister's for a few days. Laura, I need space. Time to think about who you're becoming. Because the man I married wouldn't do this. The man you married would have let them take everything. The man I married would have found a better way. She left. I heard her packing upstairs, heard the car start in the driveway, heard the silence that followed. I stood in the empty kitchen, looking at the table where this had all started, and wondered if she was right. The call from Patricia Vance came 2 days later. "Your settlement terms are insulting," she said without preamble. $50,000? You know they don't have that. Then they should have thought of that before suing me. Dean, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I could foreclose tomorrow. 50,000 is me being generous. They're willing to drop the lawsuit. Isn't that enough? No. What do you want? What I said. 50,000, signed release, full acceptance of all mortgage terms, including my right to inspect the property and require repairs. They'll never accept that. Then we go to trial, and I win, and they lose everything anyway. Patricia was silent for a long moment. I'll convey your offer. She hung up. I smiled. 3 days later, Tyler showed up at my door. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. He looked terrible. Unshaven, eyes red, clothes rumpled. Can we talk? He asked. Is your lawyer present? This isn't about the lawsuit. This is about you being my dad. I stopped being your dad when you sued me. Don't say that. It's true. You made it true. He stepped forward. I didn't move back. Brooke's pregnant, he said. We're having a baby. Your grandchild. I heard. Doesn't that mean anything to you? It means you're bringing a child into a financial disaster of your own making. We made mistakes. I know that. But Dad, we're drowning. The mortgage, the debts, the legal fees. We can't keep going like this. Then accept my settlement terms. We don't have $50,000. Not my problem. It is your problem. You're my father. You're supposed to. I'm supposed to what, Tyler? Enable you? Subsidize your terrible decisions? Pretend you didn't try to destroy me? I didn't try to destroy you. $900,000 says otherwise. He grabbed my arm. Oh, please, I'm begging you. Show mercy. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then at his face. I saw desperation there, real fear. Good. You want mercy? I said quietly. Drop the lawsuit. Pay me back at a rate you can afford. Accept responsibility, and maybe we can work something out. What rate? $3,000 a month. That's more than we were paying the bank. The bank didn't have to deal with being sued by their own son. We can't afford that. Then sell the house. Dean, or I foreclose. Your choice. He let go of my arm, stumbling back. You're not my father anymore. You made that decision when you filed those papers. You're a monster. I'm a reflection of what you created. He left. I watched him drive away in that expensive SUV he couldn't afford, heading back to that expensive house he couldn't afford, to that expensive wife who'd never been affordable. Inside, I called Nina. They're going to reject the settlement, I said. Probably. What's next? The inspections. I want that house examined from foundation to roof. Every code violation documented. Every required repair listed. That's aggressive. That's the terms of the mortgage. I have a right to protect my investment. Dean, set it up. She sighed. I'll have someone there next week. I hung up and returned to my apartment, to my corkboard, my spreadsheets, my careful documentation of Tyler's collapsing life. I should have felt guilty, cruel, wrong. I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The inspector's report came back thick as a phone book. 37 code violations, ranging from minor to serious. The garage door sensors were faulty. The roof needed replacement within 2 years. The foundation had settling cracks. The electrical panel was undersized for the house's load. Total estimated repairs, $85,000. I had the report hand-delivered to Tyler at his office. I wanted him to open it in public, surrounded by coworkers, with nowhere to hide his reaction. The next day, Brooke posted on social media a long, rambling message about toxic family members and financial abuse and protecting our growing family from negativity. She didn't name me, didn't have to. Everyone who knew us would know exactly who she meant. The comments filled with support. Poor Brooke, so brave, standing up to abuse, protecting her baby. I screenshot it all, added it to my files, evidence of their narrative, their victimhood, their careful construction of a story where I was the villain. Good. Let them think that. Laura called that night. I saw Brooke's post, she said. So did I. Dean, this has gone too far. She's lying, you know that. I know she's scared. I know Tyler's scared. I know you've backed them into a corner and they're lashing out. They started this, and you're finishing it by becoming the thing they accused you of being. What do you want me to do, Laura? Give up? Let them win? I want you to stop. Right now. Before you do something you can't take back. I'm not doing anything illegal. That's not what I mean, and you know it. Then say what you mean. She was quiet for a long time. I mean, I'm scared I'm losing you. Not to them, to this, to whatever you're becoming. I'm becoming someone who doesn't let people use him. You're becoming someone I don't recognize. Then maybe you never really knew me. She hung up. I stared at my phone, at her name on the screen, and felt something crack inside my chest. But I didn't call her back. 3 weeks passed. Tyler ignored my calls. Brooke's social media campaign continued. Harold filed a complaint with the State Banking Commission claiming the mortgage sale was fraudulent. It was dismissed within a week. Nina prepared formal foreclosure documents. If they miss one more payment, she said, we can proceed. Do it, I said. Dean, once we file these, there's no going back. Foreclosure is public record. It destroys credit, makes it almost impossible to buy another house for years. I know. They have a baby coming. I know that too. And you're okay with it? I thought about Tyler's face when he'd shoved those mortgage papers across my table, about Brooke's dismissive glances, about the $900,000 lawsuit, about all of it. Yeah, I said, I'm okay with it. The foreclosure notice was served on November 15th. Tyler called me screaming. You can't do this. There are laws, protections, all of which I'm following exactly. I'll fight you. With what money? I'll tell everyone what you're doing. I'll make sure the whole world knows. Go ahead. Tell them your father bought your mortgage after you sued him for $900,000. See how much sympathy you get. He was sobbing now. Actual tears. Dad, please. We have nowhere to go. You have 3 months. That's the law. We have a baby coming in 2 months. You should have thought of that earlier. I hate you. Join the club. He hung up. I sat in my apartment, looking at the corkboard, at all my careful planning, at the evidence of months of calculated revenge. And I waited for the guilt to come. It didn't. The inspection reports kept coming. Not just from my mandated checks, but from the county building department, the fire marshal, even the HOA. Each one found new violations, new problems, new expensive fixes. It was almost as if someone had tipped off every regulatory body in the city about potential issues at 734 Willowbrook Circle. Someone who knew exactly where to look. Tyler's messages went from angry to desperate to pleading within 2 weeks. The HOA fined us $5,000 for the garage door. The county says the deck doesn't have proper permits. The fire marshal found faulty wiring in the attic. Dad, please, we can't afford this. I replied once, briefly. All items are documented in the mortgage agreement. Repairs must be completed within 60 days. We don't have $60,000. Then sell the house. The pattern continued. Every week brought a new crisis, a new violation, a new impossible demand. The kitchen permits were outdated. The bathroom renovations hadn't been inspected. The fence encroached on the drainage easement. I didn't cause these problems. They'd existed all along, hidden by Harold's sloppy development work and covered up during the sale. I was just making sure they came to light. All legal, all documented, all perfectly justified, and all systematically destroying them. The third missed mortgage payment triggered the foreclosure timeline. Nina filed the necessary documents with the court. Tyler and Brooke had 90 days to either bring the account current or vacate the property. Brooke's social media posts got more frantic. Photos of their nursery, half-finished, pleas for help from friends, vague accusations about corrupt systems, and weaponized bureaucracy. The comments were divided now. Some people saw through her narrative. Others doubled down on support. I didn't care either way. The house became my full-time job. I spent hours documenting every violation, every required repair, every ignored notice. I built a file so complete that no judge could question my rights as the mortgage holder. Laura came home once, 2 weeks into December. She walked through our house like a stranger, touching things gently, looking at old photos on the walls. You're still doing it, she said, not a question. Yes. Tyler called me. He says you're foreclosing. I am. Because he missed payments he couldn't afford after you manipulated the situation to make them impossible. Because he sued me for $900,000, and I decided to fight back. By destroying him. By holding him accountable. She looked at me for a long time. When did you stop loving him? The question hit harder than I expected. I never stopped. Then how can you do this? Because love isn't the same as being a doormat. I loved him enough to raise him, pay for his education, help him start his life. He loved me enough to sue me when I wouldn't bankrupt myself for his mistakes. So this is revenge. This is consequences. There's a difference? Not anymore. She left the next morning. This time she didn't say when she'd be back. In early December, Tyler showed up at the pier where I was working. I was on the boardwalk fixing a railing when I saw him approach. He looked awful. Thinner, paler, like he hadn't slept in weeks. "We need to talk," he said. "We've talked. Not like this. Not with lawyers and documents and all the bullshit. Just you and me." I set down my drill. "Okay, talk." "I'm sorry." 2 words I'd been waiting months to hear. They landed flat, empty. "For what?" I asked. "For the lawsuit. For listening to Brooke and Harold. For thinking you owed me something you didn't." "Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want, Tyler? Absolution? Forgiveness? A magic reset button?" "I want my father back." Your father is the one foreclosing on you. Can't have it both ways." His face crumpled. "We have nowhere to go. Brooke's due in 6 weeks. We're going to have a newborn and no home. You have family, friends, options. We've burned through all of them. Everyone we know thinks we're toxic. The lawsuit destroyed our reputation. Your foreclosure made it impossible to rent anywhere decent. Again, consequences. I made a mistake. You made 100 mistakes, and every time you had a chance to fix it, you made it worse. The lawsuit, the social media attacks, the lies about me. You chose all of it. I was desperate. So am I. No, you're vengeful. There's a difference. I picked up my drill. We're done here. Dad, please, I'm begging you. If not for me, for the baby, your grandchild, do you really want them to grow up knowing you put them on the street? That one landed. I stopped, my back to him. You're using your unborn child as a weapon, I said quietly. Again, just like in the lawsuit. I'm asking for mercy. Then here it is. I'll give you 4 months instead of 3 to vacate. That's an extra month after the baby's born. Use it to find somewhere you can actually afford. 4 months? That's not mercy. It's more than you gave me when you filed those papers. I walked away. He didn't follow. The days got shorter, colder. Christmas approached. I ignored it. Nina called with updates. The foreclosure was proceeding on schedule. Tyler's lawyer had filed several motions to delay, all denied. The bank account garnishments were in place. Any money Tyler earned would now go partially to me for the mortgage debt. He's basically working to pay you back now, Nina said. His take-home pay barely covers rent wherever he ends up. Good. Dean, can I be honest? Always. You've won. You've proven your point. Maybe it's time to back off a little. Offer them a settlement they can actually accept. Like what? Let them surrender the house. Forgive the remaining debt. Let them start over. Why would I do that? Because you're not actually a monster, despite what you're pretending to be. I hung up, but her words stuck. Monster. Was that what I'd become? I looked around my apartment, at the corkboard still covered with notes and photos and documentation, at the spreadsheets tracking every dollar Tyler owed me. It looked like the workspace of someone obsessed, someone who'd lost perspective, someone who'd become exactly what they hated. I tore it all down. Every note, every photo, every piece of evidence. I stuffed it all into a trash bag and threw it in the dumpster behind the building. Then I went home. To my real home. Laura's car wasn't in the driveway. The house was dark. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. But it felt different. Empty. Like the life had been sucked out of it. I found a note on the kitchen table. I'll be at Mary's until you figure out who you want to be. I love you, but I can't watch you destroy yourself anymore. L. I read it 3 times. Then I called her. Dean? She sounded surprised. I tore down the corkboard. What? The apartment. All my notes and plans and obsessive tracking. I threw it all away. Silence. Then, why? Because Nina called me a monster and I realized she was right. You're not a monster. I've been acting like one. Yeah, you have. More silence. Can I come over? I asked. Not yet. Laura. You need to fix this first. Really fix it. Not just feel bad about it. How? You're smart. You'll figure it out. She hung up. I sat at the kitchen table, in the same spot where Tyler had laid those mortgage papers months ago, and thought about what fixing it would look like. The foreclosure was scheduled for January 15th. The baby was due January 20th. I could stop it. 1 phone call to Nina, 1 modified settlement, and it could all be over. But if I did that, what would I have gained? Tyler would still hate me. Laura would still be gone. I'd have destroyed my family for nothing. There had to be a middle ground, a way to make Tyler understand what he'd done without completely ruining him. I grabbed a notepad and started writing. Not revenge plans this time. Settlement terms. Real ones. Terms that would hold Tyler accountable but give him a path forward. Terms that would protect me but not destroy him. Terms that would end this war without requiring total surrender from either side. By midnight, I had something workable. By morning, I had it refined. And by the time the sun came up over the water, I had a plan that might actually save what was left of my family, or at least stop me from being the villain in my own story.